That's Nick.
And that's Joseph. And today we're here to talk about Earth Mama, the directorial debut of Savanah Leaf, which premiered at the 2023 Sundance Film Festival in dramatic competition. It is being released courtesy of A24 on July 7th, 2023.
The story, an intimate coming-of-age story of a pregnant single mother who embraces her Bay Area community as she determines the fate of her family. So, the pregnant single mother, her name is Gia, played by
Tia Nomore.
She appears to be in her early 20s. And we see she already has two children who are maybe 4 and 6.
Somewhere in there.
And they're in foster care because she's having a difficult time taking care of them. We know she has issues with drugs, financial issues, housing stability. So she's doing her best to adhere to social services. They want her to take classes, work so many hours, find particular housing, and she's just having a hard time. So in the period we see her, she is very pregnant. She has limited visitation with her children, which is frustrating. She works at a photo shop to make some money. It's clearly not enough. She lives with her sister who sells drugs. So it's not a good environment. And she has a best friend named
Trina. Played by Doechii.
And Trina has very strong opinions about what Gia should do with her baby.
And is also pregnant.
They're both going to the same classes. One of those classes is run by Erika Alexander.
Miss Carmen.
And Erika Alexander's job also includes her helping these mothers with adoption. But she's very clear with them that you have a lot of options. There's no, this is just one of them. So at a point, Gia decides that she will give up her baby for adoption because she can't even get herself together to have the two kids she already has. And she agrees to an open adoption, meaning that the family who takes her child will allow her to have some visitation. So she meets with a family who she likes, but we find out Gia hasn't had an ultrasound yet. So Erika Alexander gets her one, and when she sees her baby, she decides she can't go through with the adoption. So that causes her to be upset, which causes her to go out with one of her neighbor friends, this lesbian lady, and they go to a street racing, illegal event. And up to this point, ever since Gia started considering adoption, she's been avoiding her best friend. So her best friend's upset. She sees her best friend at the street racing thing, and they get into a little bit of a fight. So when Gia goes home, she hits the pipe. I'm not clear what she's using. Whenever I see a pipe, I think crack, but obviously illegal drugs.
Something not good for her.
And then her water breaks. She gets taken to the hospital, has the baby, and then when Erika Alexander shows up, she has a look on her face like, girl, you're in trouble. And that's when we find out that her lab results came back positive for something. So Erika tells her, you still have a little bit of time to decide what you want to do. Because if you don't give up this baby for adoption, we're going to take the baby, just like we took your other two kids. So Gia decides to give up her baby for adoption to the family we met earlier. The dad is played by Bokeem Woodbine.
Bokeem, yeah, and the mother's played by Sharon Duncan-Brewster, Monica and Paul. You can see her in Denis Villeneuve's Dune as well.
And the final scene is some time has passed and Gia is in front of a judge asking for more visitation with her children. The end. I thought this movie was excellent.
I agree.
It's this type of character we've seen in, there are many stories about this type of young lady, but I think this film handles it in a way that's very sort of precise.
Yeah, it's not sensationalized at all. It's got a combination of elements. It kind of feels like a docu-hybrid a little bit.
It definitely elevates it and makes it feel more sophisticated.
Yeah.
So it was a pleasure to watch.
It opens with, and we get a few talking heads, which is where the documentary comes from women that are in some of these classes attended by Gia, but it opens with a woman, and it ends up being Erika Alexander's voice off screen, and she's asking her, "Why should we care if you make it?" And I like the woman's response about like I don't give a damn if you care that I make it, but also that's the nature of why we tune into even watching a film is we are led to believe that we have to be led to care about people, which to me is kind of the overall sadness of this whole dilemma.
So, an idea, there's so many things you could talk about in this film, like the right these women have to have their children, and how the state, we sort of have these guidelines, or we've determined like we'll take your kids if they're not, which in many ways is valid, but then also it becomes so tricky once you're part of the system.
It's quicksand. Mm-hmm.
So, I don't think we have time to go through all that, but what I think the film does very well is this sense of community, because we see it's interesting to have a discussion about like, could someone like Gia do a better job with her children if she were allowed to have them, even despite her, perceived shortcomings, versus these kids being in foster care? Because we see her children, and clearly her son wants to be with her. He loves his mom. He just wants to be with his mom, and he can't be, and that makes him sad. And then her daughter seems very affected because she's kind of gone mute towards her mother. She's angry. So, but she has this community around her because she has her best friend. There in the area she lives in, there's this lesbian who seems to have taken a liking to her and is helping her. And I'm sure if she were allowed to have her children, probably could have found a way to take care of them. But again,
once you're in the system, it's very difficult without a lot of assistance to get out of it, to be able to satisfy all the requirements for the required period of time.
What I think the film does well is, as an audience member who doesn't have children, can't have children, it left me questioning, like, I don't know, like, why can't we just give her kids and
set her up for success?
I think that's that's a testament to the effective storytelling. Mm-hmm. So that's what I really liked about the movie, is that it left me feeling like, I don't know. I don't know that I think her kid should have been taken away from her, despite her not having stable housing and maybe having a drug problem. That doesn't necessarily mean she can't be a good mother, because the way things are going, it's like, I don't know that she'll ever get her kids. Or by the time she does, will the damage caused...
Will it be too great?
Too great versus, I don't know. Like, but that's the beauty of it. I don't know. And the film made me feel that way.
Well,
I like that.
Right. And about how all these systems, while there is supposedly a helpfulness in place, don't really work anymore. Or for people in certain situations, there should be... I don't know, like, aren't we sophisticated enough as humans to kind of get with the program to be more helpful? I don't know. But what struck me is that at the end, when, she has gone past the point of no return by deciding to take drugs, and that shows up in her system in the babies, and Erika Alexander is pressuring her, like, you have a couple of hours. It's like her motherhood is desiccated to such a degree that it's almost like an organ transplant. Like, she is like a corpse, and we have a minute to decide if your organs, your baby, should be transplanted to another. Because that's what a child is. It's like, it's an organ that's grown inside you. And that's the devastation of it, is the only way she can keep her child is when it's inside her body.
Just going through my notes, Gia has like a protracted navel, and I would be curious to know like what that is. Because then we get a scene, which I'm assuming was a fantasy sequence, because there are a few of those, mm-hmm. where she pulls it out. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if that's a thing that can happen. I'm very curious what that is. Maybe an OBGYN nurse can explain, or a labor delivery nurse could explain.
The difference between innies and outies? Or
well, on the pregnant mother, like, and then could you pull on it and would it come out some? Like... Because she also had a clip on it.
She had a clip, but
the kind of clip they put on newborn babies.
Right, but she's pulling because we get a snippet of her in that clinic listening to when they cut the umbilical cord, how you're not supposed to touch that till it falls off. But she's pulling, like, in that fantasy sequence, like, a bunch of hair out.
You know what I should do is watch one of those, like, videos for, like, new mothers to better understand. Because that probably sounds so crazy right now. When So we see Gia's relationship with the lesbian neighbor because the first time she and her best friend come home, there are a bunch of guys standing around, sort of like catcalling them. But it's obvious they have like a relationship.
There's a rapport.
Like there's a rapport where they give each other a hard time. But one of the group of the men is actually this lesbian. And we see Gia trying to set up a crib and she can't do it. She's frustrated. And then we cut to her having asked the lesbian to do it. And of course the lesbian builds the crib lickety split. And then they sort of lean on, Gia leans on her. But then we get to a point where it's like, does this lesbian sort of, like she's fond of Gia. And Gia's like, because at a point she gets upset and says, stop calling me mama. Because the lesbian keeps calling her mama. Which I thought was very interesting. Because again, it's like, she needs help. The people who are willing to help her versus who are not, and what she has to sacrifice to get that help.
Help without judgment as well, because what Trina is doing is really pressuring her to make a decision that maybe isn't the best given the current situation.
There's a really sad scene where Gia goes to a park to steal diapers.
Yeah.
That was just heartbreaking.
And you can hear the women off screen see her do it and are trying to follow her.
Which I don't know. I mean, it was just heartbreaking because I feel like if I saw, I mean, I was at a Food for Less once. This is like 20 years ago, maybe longer, maybe like 25 years ago. And there was a pregnant woman stealing food. And the way the security like almost tackled her. And I was there and I said, well, I'll buy the food. And the guy was like yelling at me, like, stay out of it. And the lady's looking at me like, help me. And I was, I was young, like 19. But I just thought, for real? Like she was a big ass pregnant lady. Like she was very, very pregnant. And it was like lunch meat and cheese or something that she took. Which I understand pregnant women aren't supposed to eat lunch meat. But that's what she had. And it just felt like, wow.
Yeah.
Why would you try to help this?
We don't live in a system that helps.
Not that there should be excuses for why people steal or whatever, but it's just like...
No, but
it was heartbreaking to see this young lady steal diapers. And then these women... she's in the Bay Area. These women didn't sound like women who maybe are part of her community.
No.
Sort of like they almost want to get her in trouble.
Well,
whereas I feel like I would have been like, girl, you need like formula? Like, I got you. Like, here, take it.
Well, because you hear in their voice this that passive way of like, ma'am, and then when it's clear that she's not going to turn around, then they start getting angry. And it's like, okay. I think it looks great. It was shot on film by Jody Leipz, cinematographer who you've seen many of examples of his work. He shot Manchester by the Sea, Martha, Marcy, May, Marlene. Recently, The Good Nurse, which we reviewed. I really liked the look of the film.
I like how the film looks. I like the score.
Yeah.
I also really like the documentary feel because we get, like you mentioned, some of the women sort of telling their stories about motherhood and their relationship with the foster care system. But we also get some men, like those men who were catcalling and harassing Gia. They come into her photo shop to get pictures done. And then we get these random scenes of them talking about how the foster care system affected them. There's also a device used because in the photo studio, there are backdrops. And we find out that Gia likes to go to like the woods to sort of like clear her mind. So we get a sequence where she is in the woods, but then as the camera pulls back, we realize that she's actually in the photo studio standing in front of a backdrop of the woods. So she was daydreaming. We get a scene with her and her lesbian friend going to the woods that I thought was very effective. And then the moment when Gia starts using drugs, we see her sort of escape into her happy place where she's walking naked through the woods. I thought that was all very well done.
I would be interested. There's a documentary short that Savanah Leaf directed in 2020 called "The Heart Still Hums," and Taylor Russell, who's an actor whose work you've seen her in in Bones and All and Waves, co-directed that, which I'd be interested in watching.
Another little detail I liked was every time Gia gets on her phone, because she has a prepaid phone, her minutes balance pops up, which I thought was a really effective way to show like the financial, like the constant stress she's under. Well, and I've never owned a prepaid phone, so I don't know if that's like common, but so people probably make fun of me, but either way, it was very effective.
Well, the anxiety of that is just like,
Yeah.
oh my God.
Yeah.
Like when her water breaks and it's like, you gotta get through this, like, you owe 46 cents. Like,
But that being said, it's like, because I was thinking like the movie Precious, I find difficult to watch because it does feel like trauma porn. It's like they threw everything, like any possible thing you could think of is in that movie. So it feels kind of hard to connect to the main character because it just seems like such a very specific. This film,
it's desensitizing.
yeah, this film, there is a lot happening, but it's done in such a subtle way that it feels, it felt very easy to relate to her and her frustration and want to care for her. Yeah, so very well done.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I
What
agree.
would you give this movie?
4.
I would give this film 4 out of 5.
And Erika Alexander, you know, is always nice. I think she has a pretty good, sizable supporting role that was nice to see because she brings a lot of gravitas.
Well, I didn't know she was in this film when she popped up on screen. I was so happy.
Mm-hmm.
And then there was a Q&A afterwards with Erika Alexander.
Mm-hmm.
And just hearing her talk anytime.
Yeah.
She has an interview with the Breakfast Club
Mm-hmm.
available on YouTube, I would recommend. She's just so...
Well, she's captivating.
She's captivating.
Yeah. And Bokeem Woodbine, he just is there to be kind, but Bokeem Woodbine is also fun.
I like him in everything
And
I
elevates
see.
anything he's in. But
Anything else?
no, I'm looking forward to seeing more of Tia Nomore as the lead, though. I thought she was really good, and I thought she was also pretty captivating in the Q&A.
Mm-hmm. Hit the thanks button. Listen to our podcast. Bye.